Rolling, rolling on the river. Rolling on the river.
Hello and welcome back to the channel of MajorLuck92, the Shaman of Gaming, and more importantly today, welcome to my brand new series, the aptly named Rolling Back the Years, where I'm going to be covering one of my favourite games, or just my most memorable games from each year, going backwards from 2011 to as far back as I can actually, record and have the means to record. And I'll be going over, some of the reasons why this was like my favourite game from that year, or why it was favoured, whatever. And basically today is the 2011 video, and I have got Dark Souls. Basically, over the time I played this game, which is hundreds and hundreds of hours, it's got to be over, I don't know, it's definitely over 100 hours worth of gameplay. This is my my new game plus, and it's sort of quickly become one of my favourite games actually of all time. It's the game that I was really waiting for, because to be honest, nowadays games are so sort of, we live in an era where, single player games, even though some of them are quite complex, they're sort of created for anybody to be able to complete, really. And Dark Souls, as Demon Souls did before it, obviously that was only on PlayStation 3. This is completely cross-platform. But yeah, they really focus on hardcore gamers who are willing to really study what you need to be sort of focusing on to actually, get good at a certain game, and it really rewards you for that. Dark Souls is a really, as I say, rewarding, but it's a really sort of punishing experience as well if you don't know what you're doing. When I first started playing this game, I was sort of inexperienced at it, of course. Obviously, I haven't played it before. And it punishes you for not taking time to really, respect the game. And if you're not interested in, hardcore or, more sort of serious gaming, this game really isn't for you. But it's really the game that I've been waiting for. I'm in a game, and especially an adventure game, or anything like that, or like a role-playing game for the majority of them anyway. I really do like fantasy, really. I'm a massive fan of the Final Fantasy series. I love, creatures, and this game has arguably got the best bosses of any game. So, that's one of the main reasons why I really, really did enjoy this. It really rewards you, as punishing as it is, when you sort of, take more than, I don't know, 5 steps without being killed. When early on in your life cycle of this game, you do really feel a sense of accomplishment, because at any moment, you could be killed by something that doesn't even seem too dangerous. As you can see me now, I showed my stats at the beginning of the game, and at this point I am really, really over leveled. But when you're early on, you sort of take some things for granted. You think, oh, that can't be too dangerous. Like these, it looks like these are really easy to dispatch, these enemies I'm fighting at the moment. But believe me, when you first start the game, it's devastatingly hard to just survive, really, and you've got to really search everywhere for new weapons and play the game for all it is, and it's got so much to offer in terms of that, in terms of exploration and rewarding you with rewards, really, like weapons and that sort of thing. Now, as far as like the game itself goes, if you haven't played this and are interested in really serious single player gaming, then I would definitely suggest this. It's definitely by far my favourite game of 2011, and as I said, it really swiftly became one of my favourite games of all time, just because of the depth that it makes you go into. And as I was mentioning, I'm really over leveled at this point. I think I'm level 103 or something like that, and I'm only just at the beginning of my second playthrough. But here, this is what I believe to be one of the toughest bosses on the game. As I said, I do struggle at the beginning of this fight actually, but yeah, I think this is probably one of the more difficult bosses to actually defeat before you know what you're doing. And I sort of dispatch it eventually, but it is incredibly difficult. This is a stray demon. For those of you who haven't seen, you actually see the sort of living version of this demon at the beginning of the game, and this is the undead version locked in its cell underneath the ground. And it's got these devastating attacks. It's got its huge sort of axe slash hammer, and it's the dust cloud attacks that are really devastating. And as you can see, it's really sapping my health even at this really over leveled point. And but what you have to do is just, you know, get a bit of control, and it's the same all the way through the game really. What you've got to do is really pace yourself. You need to sort of give yourself room to learn the ways of the game, and you know, the pace, and dictate enemies' attacks. And yeah, just really sort of pace yourself, wait for openings. One of the most important things on this game is your stamina, which obviously is that green bar underneath the health. Is to never run out of stamina, which I actually do a couple of times in this fight. I prefer to wear heavy armor, which sort of it puts a little bit of a downer on your stamina. It's easier to lose your stamina, but I just prefer to have heavy armor, have a bit of protection, and I prefer to fight with a long weapon and a shield. That's basically how I fight. I very rarely use magic. I think I use it a couple of times in this video just to sort of showcase, you know, the different things that this game has to offer. But this is, for the most part, how I like to fight. As you can see, I'm just really I've sort of got my act together in this fight now. I just pulled back to get a little bit of health. I've got my act together in this fight. I've got the tactic that I want to deploy, which is basically getting behind it when it does the dust cloud attacks, because the area of effect is a little bit less behind it for both the attacks, and you can hit the stray demon's tail without actually locking on, and basically waiting for it to do this attack here, because it's quite easy to dodge, and then it also gives you a very easy opening to go for a heavy attack if you want. But I would suggest this game for anybody who's into this kind of thing. You know, it follows on exactly where Demon's Souls left off really. It's a really difficult game to master, but once you get into it, you feel it's like an addictive book. You don't want to put it down, and with this you don't want to come off it. You want to just learn more about it, get further into it, you know, master everything that it has to sort of put it, you know, that it has to offer and has to put on the table. And you know, one of my favourite things about this game is just how gorgeous it actually looks. It's I think it's graphically one of the best games on the 360. You know, I haven't really seen how it looks on the PC or the PS3, so I can't really comment on that. But you know, having played it on the 360, I think it's one of the more sort of beautiful looking games that you're likely to find really, and it has some really gorgeous vistas, and some of the environments are just insane. It just goes from one extreme to another. You know, for everyone who has played this, you'll know how addictive this game gets, and how, you know, the environments can change from one place to another. This is actually, I'm actually revisiting the original area of the game. You start here, right at the beginning of the game, and you can, after you've done a certain amount of things, you can actually revisit it to fight that boss, and there's a couple of items that you can get, and such and so on and shit. But yeah, the environments just go from one extreme to another. You know, this is an asylum, and the next place, you know, you get up to a place called the Undead Burg, and there's a church, and then you've got like a garden and woods and forest, that sort of thing, and then you can go underground, and it really does go from one extreme to another. But some of the bosses, even just some of the generic enemies are just so epic. The diversity in the weapons that you wield. I think I've got a halberd at the moment, but there's also some epic swords, great swords, axes and hammers and clubs and all sorts. I think I actually whip out a club just to show you what it's like later on in the game. That's what she said. And yeah, just to sort of show off the different weapons that this game brings to the table. There's all sorts of different ammo. The upgrade system's fantastic. You can get to blacksmiths to upgrade your armor and your weapons and all sorts. So the upgrade system's fantastic. It's got so much to offer. As you can see, I showed my stats at the beginning of the game. You have all kinds of things that you can change, like the amount of health you have, stamina, the amount of you know, that you can sort of, how much of a beating you can take. Poise is all to do with, you know, what sort of weight of armor you've got, and I think I've got the black iron armor on at the moment, and the poise is really high on that, which basically means, you know, you're not going to be staggered by enemy hits if you've got your shield up and that sort of thing. So it goes really deep, this game, and that's what she said again. And it just, for everybody who's interested in more serious gaming, there's just nothing that this game doesn't have. In terms of, you know, adventure, perfect, like flawless fighting system, because it's so basic. I often say that that's, you know, sometimes what separates a game from other games. It's like, you know, probably my favourite multiplayer series is actually the Gears of War series. I know I don't post a lot of that on my channel, but I've been struggling to play Gears of War 3. I've been having some horrible spawns and such, but it's actually probably my favourite multiplayer series, and the reason I liked that prior to Gears of War 3 is that it was so raw, so you know, basic. You have what you have, and it doesn't sort of go too in depth in terms of fighting. I mean, this game, even though there is so many different types of weapons and such, the fighting itself is seamless but really simple, and I think that's the beauty of it, really. Approaching the end of this video, well, kind of approaching the end of it. I think I've got about 2 minutes or so left. I'm not really sure what else to say other than, you know, for those of you who have played this, hopefully you enjoyed this, and maybe you can appreciate my skills on this game, because it's actually one of the games that I've put most time into. And for those of you who haven't seen this, hopefully this will inspire you to go out and get it, even though it is, you know, sort of like just under a year old. It'll never get old, this game, really, and the replayability factor of it, the replayability factor of this game is fantastic. You know, you can play it so many times and so many different ways, really. As I said, you know, my favourite sort of weapon styles and such is to fight with a long weapon and a shield, but you know, you can build up your magic, or you can, you know, use light armor. You want to be, you know, a little bit swifter and such. You can do that. So there is so many different ways you can play it. You can play it so many times, and you know, build up your character to just be ridiculous. As I said, my character's a little bit over leveled here, so I sort of dispatch enemies fairly easily, even though I nearly did get my number taken by that stray demon, but this guy's got fucking no chance. So yeah, there's just so many, you know, different paths you can take, and one of the things that's so fantastic about this game is that it is absolutely seamless. There's pretty much no loading screens whatsoever. You know, sort of every area is linked to every other area in one way, shape or form. Obviously not every place is sort of accessible at the beginning of the game. Certain things you have to do. So yep, seamless, beautiful game. I would suggest it to anybody who's sort of a more serious gamer. For those of you who've seen this game before, hopefully, you know, you can appreciate this video, and hopefully it'll inspire you to come back for the next video, which of course will be 2010. I'll pick me poison on that one, and I shall see you next time. Thanks for watching, and round the ragged rock the ragged rascal ran until he tripped up and smashed his skull off.